Wars Indiana here today with another episode of Star Wars Alternate History. And today's question is, what if the clones were never created for the Old Republic during the Clone Wars? So, the most obvious thing is clones will not be the major force of use for the Republic, which is going to be a big issue because this means the Republic is going to be reliant on native armies and basically citizens to pick up and fight for them, which is going to be very difficult with the large amount of battle droids the Confederation or the Separatists are making quickly. They aren't going to be able to keep up with the amount of soldiers the Confederacy has, therefore allowing the Confederacy or the Separatists to overrun the Republic, at least in the size of army. Though in war, it is also necessary to have the best technology to win. But the problem is here, I think the Confederacy and the Republic were on near even grounds. So this means it's basically going to be based on whoever has the largest and quickest army and best trained army, which the Republic had a better trained army, but the clones were made much more quicker than people were born. The Clone Wars was only a 3 or 4 year period, and millions upon millions of clones died, and, and they're a lot easier to replace than a citizen who dies in the midst of battle. And that's why the majority of people in battle were that weren't clones were either Jedi's or admirals who were in charge. Furthermore, the Jedi Purge wouldn't occur. This is because the programming inside the clones from Palpatine is what ultimately causes the Purge. Now, I think a large amount of Jedi are likely to die in the war because of not having as large of armies and they're having to actually go in and do more. But at the same time, a larger amount of Jedi are going to survive the Clone Wars because the clones will not have turned on them. And it's a lot harder to bribe people to turn on a fellow friend than it is to program them to turn on a fellow friend unwillingly. And the clones were programmed this way from birth. Now, a few were able to escape this, but the majority fell in with their programming. So, and even if Palpatine still came to power, which is a lot less likely in this scenario, because the clones was what swayed his power to rise, and the Clone Wars overall, which was is likely to be a lot shorter without the clones. Palpatine wouldn't have been able to kill this large amount of Jedi because of not having clones, meaning the Jedi are going to likely easily find hiding places and whatnot, and he's going to have to hunt these down with Inquisitors or Dark Vader, or whatever method he wants to use, but it's going to be a lot harder to exterminate the Jedi Order even if the Old Republic falls. Furthermore, the Separatists were ringing for we're just trying to get out of the corrupt republic. It's kind of like, how the separatist states, the Confederacy in the U.S. Civil War was trying to succeed from the Union. In this case, the separatists were trying to succeed from the Old Republic. So, and without this larger army, the Old Republic Senate is much more likely to recognize the separatists as a legit government and continue on because they are not able to fight this war effort that is ultimately caused by the not having as many soldiers, essentially. which the clones fell in place of. The separatist government is still democratic. I think this is a good point to make. And this is shown in the canon television show. Dark Count Dooku allows them to vote freely, saying aye or nay. And so this isn't getting rid of any democratic values. It's essentially they are trying to leave the corrupt new republic, old republic. Therefore, making their own government, which is still a coalition of planets, which, if the old republic recognized as a legitimate government, they could then trade with and maybe keep themselves from losing any more new members, and maybe eventually the separatists would come back and join the old republic. And so another major thing is the clones is something that puts the republic in a majority of financial distress, which is often seen through Star Wars Clone Wars television show. They are constantly trying to put in more money to make more and more and more clones, and this would not happen without clones because there's no clones to put money into. Now you might put some money in trying to recruit people, be soldiers, but that's going to be a lot more difficult unless the family is in a lot of financial stress or whatnot, which is one reason for having that. They would likely have to resort to a draft without having the clones. And it would cost a lot less to run the Old Republic army. Now, it would still cost a lot because it's a huge war effort, but the Old Republic would be a lot less likely of collapsing financially and wouldn't be in as much debt. The last minor point I have is that Jango Fett wouldn't live on Kamino, which means he would likely never have died in the Battle of Geonosis. So Jango Fett, obviously hired to kill Padme Amidala, he lived on Kamino because he was there to be the person they based the clones off of. Without Jango Fett being there, he would have never been tracked back to Kamino. Obi-Wan could have happened to track him somewhere else, obviously, but even if he did, it's likely the Jedi wouldn't have sent in a huge rescue party because they didn't have the ability to, because Geonosis was a huge droid facilitating planet with many droid factories, and it was very dangerous, and it's with the huge amount of clones that they had that they were able to go in and win it by surprise the first time. So Jango Fett likely wouldn't have died in this battle, or is much less likely to die because the Jedi are much less likely to go in and save them on Geonosis if the situation were to occur where Obi-Wan goes to Geonosis still in this timeline. Essentially, all that would happen is based off of the fact, most of what would happen is based off of the fact that the large amount of clones that they had is in place of a civilian army, which allows them to better combat the large amount of droids that are constantly being produced because clones are constantly being produced. Without these clones constantly being produced, they'd be at a disadvantage. So, I hope you enjoyed it. Please give me more topics for the future. I'd really like that. And see you next time. Bye.